And you can learn something from the extremes also, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at the athletes, right? There's a certain extreme mindset that I was gonna say you have to take on. I don't know that you have to take it on. What I do know is that in this society, we worship that mindset that, it's the can you become Michael Jordan without that mindset?
Yeah.
And that is a really powerful, difficult question. It's like most people can't sustain the mindset that, fortunately, because it can be so destructive, but most people can't sustain that level of discipline to manifest the things that they want in their life. And there's a poisonous edge to that kind of discipline. And I've been to the edge of that kind of material world discipline in my mind. And I can tell you, you can have a whole lot of stuff and be miserable out there on that edge. And I found a much more comfortable and productive space in my life. And you still need that discipline.
Yes.
But it's like when you use that kind of power to achieve things, it's like there's a brutal reckoning. My father, my mother, and my grandmother, whenever I think about the three of them, I picture a triangle in my mind. And I see, like, my father was the base as discipline. And my mother didn't care about anything but education. Like, that you had to learn, grow, study, travel. Like, my mother was really serious about educating the mind. And my grandmother was love and God, right? So the form that it took was she was working hard to love everybody. I grew up in a military household. And, while there are certain emotional drawbacks to that, there are intellectual and organizational pluses that are, hard to beat. So, my father was really, strict on order, organization, and the incremental completion of tasks, and, also combined with my mother's push on education. As a really young child, we had to put hospital corners on our beds and our shoes were lined up, and, so, at 6 years old, we were forced to think along those military lines. And everything was a mission to my father. Like, there was nothing that was a basic task. You weren't just gonna wash the dishes. It was a mission, that had to be completed with, military precision. His mind was like that, and I took, we always take the things we hate the most from our parents. But, from that, the gift of structure and the gift of breaking tasks down. You set the goal, but the breaking the tasks down into smaller, manageable pieces was a thing that I came out of my childhood with. I told when I said I wanted to be the biggest movie star in the world, and I was 18 or something. And I said I want to be the biggest movie star in the world. So the first thing that we did is we looked at, okay, well, what are the top 10 movies of all time? Because if you want to be the biggest movie star in the world, you're going to have to, make the biggest movies in the world. So we said, well, what are the top 10 movies? So we looked at the top 10 movies. We said, well, what are the patterns? What are the patterns in the top 10 movies? And at the time, 10 out of 10 were special effects movies. And 9 out of 10 were special effects movies with creatures. And 8 out of 10 were special effects movies with creatures and a love story. So, you know, that's where the bent for me towards sci-fi movies came from, the recognition of the patterns of sci-fi creatures and a love story. So that became what we were looking for with everything. And then Independence Day was a no-brainer, and then Men in Black was, you know, behind that.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of systemized
algorithm.
Yes, yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah,
Looking for what is the pattern, you know, and that's you know, one of the gifts my father stuck me with coming out of childhood.
Yeah.
Sitting on this side of the experiences that I've shared, you know, in my life and in my experience, there's no such thing as a bad experience, right? There's experiences you don't like.
And they hurt.
And they hurt, right? But to define something as a bad experience, for me, has not been true. Everything that's ever happened to me in my life that at the time was deeply traumatic and debilitating. You know, there's you know, been only 2 times in my life when I contemplated suicide.
Wow.
You know, there's been 2 times in my life. You know, the once was when my mother and father separated, when my parents broke up, and I was 12, and you know, that was one of the only, you know, serious times in my life that I contemplated suicide. But even out of that, as I look back on that, the pain of that experience cultivated devotion in my life to my family, and I just never wanted to have my children suffer that. And of course, I got divorced from Cherie, so I was recreating that situation, but it woke me up in a way that forced me to try to connect with my children. So the negative experiences or the things that were awful at the time, you know, there's always the other side of the coin. And in my experience, I've cultivated only positive things out of the most negative experiences of my life. My father's death, and the 6 weeks up to my father's death was probably the most formative time in my life. And as painful as it was, and as difficult it was, and all the stuff that came up during the time, it was a powerful, formative, positive experience in my life.